Hi everyone, welcome to episode 6 of Photography Chat with Merlin. Our guest tonight is going to be Stephanie Rosie. We're just waiting for her to get on here, and then we'll get going with the chat. So I hope everyone's having a good week out there, and things aren't too terribly interesting for you all, but you're all feeling safe and happy. Get Stephanie in here, and then we'll probably start seeing some people joining us in the live. All right, there we go. We got Stephanie, so let's get her in the mix here. What's up, JP? We got JP.
There we go.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm good.
It's great to see you.
It's good to see you. What's up? What's going on?
Oh, just living the fucking dream, right?
Right.
Yeah, or something like that. I don't know. Um, the TikTok thing comes to mind where it's like I'm bored in my house and I'm in my house bored.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. I hadn't left the house for like 5 days until yesterday. I had to go out for a doctor's appointment. Um,
How'd that go?
it was interesting. So it's for like my eyes, for like the brain stuff from the car accident. So I'm doing like these optical um, therapy things, which was just weird in itself, but like a whole different thing. But on the way home, I stopped by my favorite coffee shop to pick up some beans because I was out of coffee beans. And the lady that runs it there, Linda, I posted her in my stories, the Polaroid of her there.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't seen her in like ages because of like lockdown and stuff. So we got to chatting a little bit, and I gave her the pack film shot there off of the 195, or
Nice.
yeah, 195. That's the one that I bought. Um, and she was like super stoked about it. Like she thought like the camera was cool and everything. But it was neat just having a conversation about it. She's like, well, should I have it on like mask on and mask off kind of thing? And I was like, you know what? Let's do mask on because like that's our new world.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah, like this is that.
Yeah.
She's like, it's funny you say that because she's had new customers come in since lockdown where she's like, I don't even know what they look like because I've only ever seen them mask on. And I'm like, yeah, they're missing out because like you have like one of the most radiant smiles I've ever seen. Like I can picture it under your mask because I know that it's there, but like these new customers that you're meeting like are totally missing out on that like awesome smile of yours. But it was just kind of like an interesting thing, and like giving away Polaroids is one of my favorite things to do. So that was kind of nice.
Do you miss that? We have a guy that comes to Beers and Cameras here in San Diego, and he's got like a Mamiya press that has an Instax back on it. It's like really cool because it's like a hand crank back. His name is Ray.
Yeah,
And he just, yeah, he was at the paideia.
he did. He took a
He just
photo of
gives them
Anakin.
out. It's like I have so many of them, just like a stack in my little photo cabinet. It's awesome.
That's really the only reason I have Fuji Instax is for like giving away photos of people. And I've been called out on it by a couple of people where they're like, we can tell how much you like someone based on like what kind of photo you give them. Because it's like, if I don't really know them or like whatever, they get an Instax, but it's like if they mean something to me, they get a Polaroid, and if they really mean something to me, they get a pack film shot. And I was just like, fuck you for decoding
Yeah,
my shit. That's not really fair.
but it's true. I mean,
It is kind of true. Like, I mean, we have our favorites and stuff like that. But I'm kind of curious, because we're talking about lockdown and stuff. How like I don't know if you've jumped on this. Yeah, you are in Club because I followed you on Clubhouse, or we followed each other
just
on.
today, just today.
It's pretty interesting. I've been having a lot of fun on it, but I've been in a bunch of rooms where a real common theme that comes up for discussion is just how the pandemic has affected creativity and like how people are trying to combat that. And so I was just kind of curious, like, how has the pandemic been for your creativity and whatnot?
I would say last year, like it just really tanked. But I think it had kind of been starting before that, and so like once we went into lockdown, I was just like, oh, I just don't care anymore. Because I think what really happened is like I was noticing like everything that I shot in 2019, like I just didn't really like, and I don't know, like it just wasn't coming out how I wanted it to. I don't think I was taking my time enough with it. I was also like messing around with a bunch of different film stocks, and trying to see if there was something new that I liked. And so nothing kind of really went right. And then I came into 2020 like really wanting to do more portraits and do in studio portraits and work with strobes and all that. And then lockdown happened and it was, there's no studio. I had like at one point like a couple years ago, I built like this really big V flat. Like I went to the art supply store and got like the largest foam core that I could find and like gaffed them all together and everything. And then I moved at the end of 2019 and my ceilings in this house are too low.
Oh,
So I sold it to my buddy Rob, who owns Safe Light Labs here in San Diego, and they have a big studio space. And I was like, I'll just use it all the time because it'll be over there.
and then he can't go.
And then he can't have anyone over. So
It's funny, like your story that you say about like leading into 2020. I have an almost identical story with it. So I have never really shot with models much at all, and like I've always been like honestly a little bit scared of it because of like the whole guy with camera like
yeah,
stigma,
that's a
things like
thing.
that. It really is, and like I've unfortunately known a lot of guy with camera and have distanced myself from all of them because I don't really want to get associated with that whole kind of thing. Um, but so it was like something that always kind of kept me away from it because it's like I didn't want to seem like a weirdo approaching people or anything like that. And like I already feel like enough of a weirdo when I'm doing street photography stuff and I want to take pictures of people. Um, but there was this really fantastic model who's become like, one of my top collaborators. She reached out and was like, "Hey, like, do you want to do something sometime?" And it was like, and I told her, I'm like, I'm not really super comfortable with it. Like, I'm really introverted, and this seems weird to me. Which, I mean, it probably for some people is weird for me to say that I'm introverted because like I do this weekly talk show thing now, and like my job is a public thing, and like I do all this public stuff. But then like afterwards, I'm gonna go crawl up in a ball in the corner of my house and
I
just
totally get it.
weep myself
Yeah.
to sleep because I expended all my energy. But she's like, you know what? Come join me at a studio. I'm doing a shoot with this guy with camera, and just see what it's kind of like. And it was really kind of cool. Like I brought my 4x5 and I was doing like BTS with a 4x5 while she was shooting with the guy that was shooting.
You put some stories up with that, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
remember seeing that. Yeah.
And I was just like, this is fucking cool. Like, I want to do this shit. And I didn't use any strobes or anything at that point. And there's a place in Toronto called Gallery 44 that wanted me to do a Polaroid workshop. And part of the Polaroid workshop that we talked about was at the end of the workshop, I was going to give everyone a portrait on 4x5, like with pack film. And I was going to use the studio because there's like a cool studio space downstairs that the gallery has, and they have strobes and everything there. And I'd never shot with strobes before, and I was like, you know, unneedily nervous about it because like now that I've played around with it, I'm like, they're not as scary as I thought they were. Like I was terrified of strobes.
They seem really intimidating.
They do. They seem super intimidating, but now I kind of love shooting with strobes because it's just like, well, once I get my settings done, I don't have to do anything more other than shoot and think about like what I'm shooting here because like the lighting is all the same and that's it.
Yep.
Like no more thinking. I'm like this is the best. And I had such a fun time shooting with Raywin is the model, and I was like, I want to do more of this. So I got like super psyched and stoked. The world hadn't ended yet because this was just February. It was like there was noise and like like
Yeah. The rumblings of
Yeah,
it.
there's
Yeah.
rumblings of COVID, but like, no idea that like in just a few short weeks, everything would like come to a grinding halt. I went out and bought strobes. Like I bought these alien bees off of like Craigslist, and like, I set up this whole studio thing because I'm like, I want to shoot all the time. I'm gonna do this. It's amazing. And then COVID happened.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just it like kind of knocks the wind out of you.
It really did. And yeah, it was really hard because it's like we weren't really allowed to do anything for so long. But then summer came, and like I don't know if it was the same for you, whereas like, when the weather, well, I mean the weather's always nice in San Diego. What am I talking about? Well,
I mean,
mostly
it gets a little chilly, but like it's like all relative. Like it'll
not
get in
like
the 40s
chilly.
tonight, which is freezing for us. But
Oh, okay. Yeah, like it's here, like we were sort of in the final grips of winter when COVID was just sort of doing its thing, and like, we went into spring with the lockdown starting, and then like, when lockdown started easing up a bit, it was like summertime, so we would go out and Ray and another collaborator who's like one of my favorite people to shoot with, who's all over my Instagram feed, is Mara, and we did a lot of like outdoor sort of like nature kind of shoots.
yeah,
But it was a bummer because it's like I bought all this studio gear and I wanted to play with studio stuff and I couldn't use any of it. And, like, this sucks.
yeah.
And
I think I'm gonna. So I just bought an Alien Bee off of like Facebook Marketplace,
which one did you get?
the 1600.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And it's like the guy that sold it to me was like not a photographer. I think he had gotten it with like a bunch of other stuff. So he's like, I just want to get rid of it. He actually offered me that in a like an 800 one, and I was like, I just want one right now because it's not like I
Well,
have room for
if he
two.
still
And
has if he still has the other one and it was like a fair price that he was asking for it, you definitely should go scoop it up
yeah,
because the 800s are dope, and also just having two strobe,
having two is nice.
having two is like super nice. So I initially thought I was only going to do one, but then I kind of caved and was like, it'll give me more flexibility to have two, but then I kind of ended up finding a really great deal on like a double pack of,
Oh,
I have like
nice.
three B800s, and most of the time I just use two, but three has been like kind of cool sometimes to have like that flexibility. So like the 1600 is a great like primary one for sure. Like it's super nice, and the B800 would be great to have on the side there. And like you can just they automatically slave, so the only one you need to put a
Yeah.
trigger on is like the 1600.
Oh, that's nice.
As
I didn't
long
know
as they
that.
have line of sight to each other. I've only had a couple of times where I've had to put like the second trigger in the other camera where it was in a funny angle. I was shooting under an underpass, and it was just like around a
Oh,
corner
yeah.
where I couldn't quite see it. But most of the time they just slave automatically. But it's that the 1600 is a great start. Like, you should see if that dude has the 800, the other one for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure he does because he was kind of like, so I was like, can you send me more pictures? Can you send me this? Have you turned this on? I was like, does it have the bulbs in it? And he was like, no. And then it arrived and it did. I think he never took the cover off. So it's like, all right. Bonus, because those things are like $40 between the strobe light and the modeling lamp.
So the modeling lamp, a kind of hack with those ones, go to Home Depot and you can buy
Mm,
like the replacement bulbs at Home Depot. They're way cheaper and
yeah.
they work just as well because you just need like a screw-in lamp in there. Yeah. So as long as you get the same wattage, you're all good.
So I'll tell you a funny story. When I was like, it's probably like 2007, 2008, I worked for a company that shot like proms and graduations.
Hmm.
And like that was my first time working with studio lighting. And it was like, it was such a formula. Like we'd go in for one day of training and be like, all right, you put this light here and you put this light here and you turn them here and then you meter here and like you're done. And then you're just like, oh, this is like genius. I don't like, and then you just get like a line of 100 kids. And you're like, all right, you stand here, and you like fix them up a little bit, snap, 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 and off they go. And it's
I
good.
I used to always like when I was a kid and like I don't know, it was Jostens the thing that you guys had for like school photos when you were a kid too?
We had
Um,
we had a couple different ones. Usually Life Touch. Life Touch is a
Okay.
big one in the Northeast.
Yeah, so in Canada it was like Jostens or Jostens, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but it's like, it'd always be like the same kind of dude with the flannel shirt would come in and he set up this like big huge box with all these like wires that come in. Like as a little kid you're like, wires, like what
What
is
is
that? I want
this?
buttons. I want to put it in. Yeah, I was always kind of fascinated with that stuff when I was a kid. That's cool that you did that. How long did you do
Yeah.
that for?
Uh, Not super long. They were not a great company to work for,
Oh no.
and they kind of like they screwed me on this one job where it was like what they would do is they would charge the equipment after it came back from a job.
Okay.
So then it would just sit there and its battery would be draining. And then by the time like you would go pick it up for the next thing, it was hit or miss if things were charged up right or not. And so this one time I had like a graduation to go do, and I showed up at the place to pick the stuff up and they weren't there. And then I drove and got there kind of late because of traffic and delays getting all the equipment. And then I didn't get all the shots that they wanted. And instead of asking me like, hey, why didn't you get those shots? And I'd be like, because I barely had enough to get the ones that we had to get. They
Yeah.
just like cut me out of a couple jobs and I was like, later dudes. It paid well and it was fun, but like, yeah, they were just
It sucks when the companies are.
not great to work with.
So I'm curious because we never got a chance to talk about this at the film paideia. What got you into photography? Like, what started you like either down digital or getting into film? Like,
I was always kind of a shutterbug, like as a kid. So that's why I have the picture of me with the chewing on the Minolta lens cap.
that's my
Um,
favorite one so far.
yeah. So that was my dad's camera. And I think it was an X700. It might have been like a 370 or one of the interim X models. But he had done like, he was a communications major in college. So he had done some darkroom classes and, we always had that stuff around. And I probably got like my first point and shoot. I was like 8 or 9 going to summer camp. And it may have just been like a disposable or two that my parents stuck in my bag. And then after that, I probably had like a little Kodak. But I remember one summer we went to Ritz Camera, which is like a camera chain store that did 1 hour processing. And so like the whole like summer camp unit was, okay, like we're going to go around, take our pictures, and then we're going to go to the 1 hour photo lab and learn how to develop it in their little loop-de-loop thing and do the color correction on the prints and all that. And so I was young when I first got exposed to it. And then when I was 14, my dad got me my own X700, which I still have and still use.
Nice.
So I used that to, shoot hardcore shows around Philly. It was kind of like a perfect storm of getting really into music and getting really into photography at the same time. I had like a website on like, it's probably like an Angel Fire hosted or GeoCities hosted,
Yeah, I know those.
Uh,
For the younger people that may be listening to this either live right now or on the podcast when I post it later, GeoCities and Angel Fire were website hosting services that existed before even Google was a thing.
yeah.
You could go and create really shitty websites for free as long as you were okay with them having like my website .angelfire.com or
Yeah.
.geocities.com. Sorry to interrupt you there.
My Angel Fire site still exists. I mean, I wouldn't go to it because it's just spammed with like spyware, but it's still
Seriously?
out there. Yeah, I looked it up like a couple of years ago.
Well,
It's still kicking around.
I have like a dark secret from like that time period as well too. My MySpace still exists.
It's still, I bet mine does too, because I don't think I ever deleted it. I just stopped using it.
I re-logged into I not real I logged into it a couple of years ago to sort of like make it look a little less shitty because like it was
just in
terrible.
case.
Yeah, like it was just like, hey, I'm Merlin and I'm an emo fuck in like early 2000s and everything makes me sad. I just like, this might lump me in as an incel. I don't want that to be out there, please.
Yeah, fair.
But it's funny, like those things just sort of lurk in the internet. Like you never know. That's funny that that still exists. Did you
Oh,
ever get to Deviant Art back in the day?
no,
Okay.
no. I just like, I think I was also like kind of interested in just making the, like, I did, you know, because when you had those websites, you had to like make them from scratch. Like, you needed to
Yeah,
know a little HTML. And so, like, that was fun for me. Like, I had some pirated copy of Photoshop and I would like make all my little thumbnails and
you're like a little elite hacksaw,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
doing your HTML coding. Yeah, so like what Stephanie's talking about here, Squarespace and things like that didn't exist back in the day. So
No,
there was no
no
like
WordPress.
click and make a beautiful website. It's like you had to learn code and like, you know, make animated GIFs were like the coolest thing back there. I used to use this like under construction one all the time with like
Oh,
the
yeah.
shoveling dude, and I thought that's so cool.
I at one point like stole some JavaScript off someone else's site that like, so when you clicked on my site it would like fade in to the opening picture.
That's amazing.
It was cool. It was cool. And then I had like I think like the opening photo I had was like I had done some camera shake on it, so it was kind of circular and it looked cool for being a late 90s early 2000s website.
I so that kind of like because I'm more of a I guess computer nerd than I am a photo nerd. Like I didn't get started with photography very early, but I got my first computer when I was two, and that sort of like set me up on a trajectory to be like super computer nerdy. And then photography, it seems to be a thing where it's like IT people get sucked into like cars hardcore or like photography hardcore, like you
Yeah.
know things like that. So it's kind of interesting. That's cool though that you have like your first camera still and you still use it today.
Yeah, I mean it's still going strong. I probably could use a little CLA because it's like 20. I was 14. I'm 38 now, so yeah, I've had it for 24 years.
Yeah,
Probably needs a little tune up.
Mr. Scooty Pants has watches too. That's a good point. I do love watches. Like somewhere in my mess, I've got like a nice Seiko watch that I absolutely love. Andre is huge into watches too.
Yeah, there was a phase of beers and cameras where it was like beers and cameras and watches. I
That makes sense.
think there was a spin-off Instagram account for that.
I think that like as long as your camera seems to be working and is not acting up on you and the shutter speeds seem correct, I wouldn't send it in anywhere. Like if it's not broke, don't fix it.
True.
I had this same conversation with someone about I've got a Canon AE1 that belonged to my mother and she got it from my dad 2 years before I was born. So like this thing is like a wicked relic, and all my childhood photos were shot on it. And as far as I know, it's never been CLA'd. Like it just got a new battery in it, which is the first new battery it's had in probably 15 years, because it just died like a couple weeks ago because of the cold. And I was like, maybe I should get it CLA'd. And someone was like, if it's working,
Don't
just
touch it.
yeah, just keep using it. Like the only thing that I'm noticing now is it has some light leak, so I got to change the foam on it. But yeah, if it's working, I wouldn't tempt fate with it. Like you know, wait until it starts getting janky on you and then send it in
Yeah,
for
yeah. There's like a little bit in the top where I think there's probably some debris stuck in the shutter speed ring. So I
okay.
might try and like can air that out. But I think that should probably do it. I actually just, since this is sitting here, just changed the seals on this guy.
Oh, you have one of those big chunky.
Yeah, yeah. And I just got this lens because it
What's that
has the
one?
leaf shutter,
Which
the
lens is that? Oh,
90 1.2.
1.2. Holy
Or
shit.
2.8, I'm sorry.
Or 2.8.
Yeah.
That's still awesome.
Woo.
Have you taken it out yet?
I've done a couple shots around the house. I have some Lomo purple in here right now, and I want to finish off the roll this weekend just so I can make sure that like the film is where it's supposed to be.
That's the Pentax 6.7, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the like huge chunky like handle on, like it looks more like artillery than it does like a camera. Like
It sounds like it too.
yeah, they're freaking beautiful.
It's like I had a Hasselblad that I sold to my buddy Scott, and because I had the 6.7 and I just like the format a little bit better. But the Hasselblad's really loud too. But I think the 6.7 is louder and chunkier. And then when you put so Pentax made two leaf shutter lenses. It's the 90 2.8, and then there's a 165 that has a leaf shutter in it. And the way that you use it is you set the camera shutter speed to be like 1/8 of a second, so it's really slow.
Okay.
And then you set the shutter speed on the lens, and so the mirror will stay up.
Okay.
When you shoot the camera, because some of the Pentaxes have a mirror lockup if you're going to use like the pinhole attachment for it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you do that and you trip the shutter, then the mirror just comes back down. So you have to trick the camera into staying open long enough that the leaf shutter can expose the film.
Okay.
So then it's like a double like.
That's kind of cool though. Like having, I love like noisy cameras. Like my Bronica SQAI has like the coolest. It's like almost like a flappy kind of like noise to it.
Yeah.
I call it flappy shutter because it just like it sounds so hilarious, but it's like the most satisfying shutter noise out of like all of the cameras that I have. Like it's just
That's like an important feature of cameras that we don't talk about enough. It's like, does it have a good shutter?
Yeah, it's just like the shutter noise has a good brain feel about it.
Yeah. We focus too much on the wrong things. I say this all the time, and usually what I mean is like, we're not talking about using filters enough, but like the shutter sound is.
Shutter sound's important. Like it is weird, and I've noticed that on Clubhouse too. Is like, um, there's a lot of gear conversations where it's like people are just like jerking off about their gear, and like I don't know, I get bored with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
It's really interesting because when I first started going to Beers and Cameras here in San Diego, like there weren't a lot of women going, and like the chief complaint from ones that did or ones that like would show up maybe once or twice and then leave was that like there was too much talk about gear, and they just wanted to like talk about art. And I think there's kind of like these two different camps in photography, and then there's like sort of in the middle, like because I feel like I'm in the middle, where it's like some people just like they don't really know like how their camera works. There's like I put the film in and I do some stuff and I take the picture, and like that's my process. And then there are other people that are like, and yeah, and I need this lens and I need this, and then I'm gonna and you're like, this is too much, I don't understand. Like it's like just take the picture, gosh.
Yeah, exactly. Just like think less, shoot more. Yeah, like I've gotten some like gear acquisition problems now that I've like kind of fallen into it a little bit more. But like the first time I showed some of my photos in a gallery, it was kind of terrifying because all of these arty people started asking me arty questions about my photo, and I was like, I don't know what you want from me. I saw something that looked neat, and I pushed a button, and then I made a thing, and I'm gonna run away now.
Yeah,
this is like hugely uncomfortable.
Then the introvert in you comes out, and you're like, "Where's my blanket?"
Yeah, exactly. Or there's like, so what filter did you push or pull the film? Like, I don't know, man. I put the thing in the thing, and it did the stuff, and I was happy with how it turned out. So Yeah, I feel like I'm kind of in the middle too because it's like I don't mind gear conversations sometimes, but I don't like getting like super nerdy about it. But then also I don't really super like going the other direction where it's just like, what kind of mind space were you in when you started putting this project together? Like, tell me more about, the concept. It's like, I don't know, man. I go for a walk and I like just see shit that looks cool.
Yeah. It's like I feel things about the stuff that I'm seeing, and
Yeah.
it's just, yeah, yeah. I don't think it needs to be more complicated than that, you know?
No, it shouldn't be. But I guess like people like to make it more complicated to like feel like they're part of an exclusive club. And you know, I just want everyone to be happy and get along. Like I kind of live by this mantra of like don't be a dick.
Yeah.
Like that. Um but there was where is it? Paul said, beautiful work, Stephanie. So I guess he's
Thank
had
you.
a look at your Instagram. And Vivid Eye says I can relate.
Oh,
And
that's my old roommate. She worked at the photography company.
And Travis Candy says, same shit happened to me at my first couple of shows. And where is it here? Mr. Scooty Pants or Miss Scooty Pants?
That's Scott. Scott,
Okay,
Mr.
so
Scooty
Mr.
Pants.
Scooty Pants says, I was pretty drunk and I thought it looked cool. Oh, and
Yeah, that works.
Fear and Loathing, 35 millimeter, who's a cat from Kamloops, British Columbia, which is where I still own a house that I don't live in. Um, he says, everything I do is profound.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great way to like shut up that kind of stuff.
It's just all, I just live in a profound moment, like, all the time.
I like
Just
that. I
surrounded
think
by it.
with all of our primary school English book reports taught us to read way too far into things. Yeah, but they did also teach you not to storm the Capitol. So,
Yes, there's that. There's that. I mean, mine did. I don't know about
yeah,
all these other folks. I must have slept during that course.
I guess that might have been a low blow.
Yeah. Dude, it's wild down here. It's wild down here south of the border.
I can't even imagine it. So it's like I tend to avoid the news a little bit, but like before I hopped on here, I was watching a little bit of Seth Meyers and Colbert on the impeachment stuff, and like just hearing the lawyers and shit like that, I don't even like it. It's just why is this even a fight? Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
like like the Tim and Eric thing when it's the universe. It's like
Yeah. Yeah.
I speechless. That's it. Like I no words. Yeah, they just have one thing to do, and that's just slam dunk.
Right.
Yeah,
But or not apparently.
or
Right.
not. Vivid Eye says love you with the kissy face.
Aw.
And JP.
Trying to turn this light on over here because it's getting dark now.
I
There we
like
go.
Pat's message here. Keep the rich. They probably taste awful though, so you don't want to. It's like
I'm
if
sure.
you,
Well,
you
we just don't want to waste anything. Like that's you
well,
want to
I
put
know you don't
everything to
want to
use.
waste anything, but it's like I'm not sure. Like if you grew up in San Diego or out east, because you mentioned Philly.
I grew up
Uh,
in Philly.
okay, so I don't. Were you around hunting much at all as a kid, or things like that, or eating like game meat?
No, not really. I mean, my family owns a hunting cabin in like northeastern Pennsylvania, but we are not hunters. It's more like my step families, my
Oh,
stepmom's like brothers were and her dad were into it. So it's like,
yeah,
but yeah,
heard that. Well, it's just so with Eat the Rich, there's a thing like for hunters, like one of the things they would want to avoid is like if they shot a garbage bear, and you never really know if it's a garbage bear until you get the meat done, and then it tastes just fucking awful. So
yeah,
I feel like the rich would probably be like garbage bears.
it's true.
But Kat says here, compost the rich, which I think is much better. And
Yeah,
so
you're onto something.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's a wild time right now. So in the midst of all of that and COVID and whatnot, like what are you doing to like keep your creative process alive and keep your sanity?
I don't even know. I mean, you and I chat like at least once a week where it's like, how are you? Well, like I'm okay.
But okay is like the this is fine dog and the
Right, like the everything's on fire around me. Um, so I did something which I didn't think I was prepared to do, and probably still don't feel like I was prepared to do. But I
okay.
signed up, and am part of a group coaching photography business course
Oh
with
whoa.
Sandra Cohn. So I don't know if you know who she is.
No, I'll have to
So
look it up.
she is a film photographer who lives in Seattle, and she has like a very robust studio portrait business.
Okay.
And she also teaches lighting for photography, like how to get a natural light look with strobes, shooting film. And so I like have been on her mailing list and following her for a long time. And she's like, hey, like I did 2 cohorts of this last year and people really liked it, and it helps you, it's focused not so much on like learning to do what she does, which is what I think a lot of photographers that offer that type of coaching will do. It's like, this is my method, sign up for it and you too can be just like me. And her thing is more like getting clear on what you really want to do and what like really lights you up as a photographer, and then figuring out like how best to market that to the audience that you want to present it to. So
Okay.
I'm not going to sit here and go take a bunch of pictures of people and their families on the beach, because that is like bores me to tears and I just don't want to do it. So I'm like, oh, and I kind of was like, I don't know if I'm ready for that. Like, I totally need to redo my portfolio. Like, I really want to do portraits. I just started doing large format. Like, ultimately, what I really want to do is like start doing like ambrotypes and wet plate. Like, that's kind of what I'm moving towards. But that's going to take time. And I was like,
Is that why you got the 8x10 kit?
it's a 4x5,
Oh,
but
four
yeah,
by 5. Okay.
yeah. Um, so I'm just,
Welcome
getting
to
my
the
feet
large
up. And then I
format.
was like, you know what? Like, I really haven't been super stoked about like what I'm shooting, and like maybe I just need like a little push in the right direction. And so yeah, so I'm doing that now. And it's been pretty cool so far.
That's wicked awesome.
Yeah.
And welcome to the large format club.
Yay.
We're a little crazy here.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like one of those things where I remember learning about large format as a kid, like I think like in just like regular school, they were like, well, like you have your 35 millimeter, and then there's this medium format thing, which is like more true to, what things actually look like. And then you have this large format thing that people do to like take pictures of buildings and stuff. And like, that's really accurate. And I was like, oh, that's cool. That seems really out of reach. But now it's not.
That's the joy of becoming, well, I guess like the only kind of good thing of becoming an adult is like you can buy more things.
Yeah.
It
It's
just
a
comes.
blessing and a curse.
Yeah, I don't know if you had this feeling, but like I've talked with a bunch of other friends about this, but like when we were kids, a lot of us just couldn't wait to grow up and be like, I don't want to be a kid anymore. I want to be able to like do my own. It's like, man, I fucking miss being a kid. No responsibility was rad.
I know. I tell my kids that all the time.
Yeah.
I'm like, you don't even know. You don't even know. Like so my sons are in first and third grade, and the first grader is like never been to real school because he was in kindergarten when the stay-at-home orders got put in place, and San Diego schools have not reopened at all. Haven't tried to reopen. They're like, we're waiting until we have a plan. We don't think we're ready, and we're not going to do it, which is nice because we don't have to go back and forth, but it's also exhausting because the kids have been home for now almost a full year of
And
doing
they
school.
don't understand why either, right?
Yeah, like I mean, they do and they don't. Like, they can't really wrap their heads around it. I mean, we can barely wrap our heads around it. We're adults.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Like my niece and nephew are like 5 and 7, and they're just like struggling. Like
Yeah.
they get it, they understand, but also it's like, why can't we just go out and play? Like,
Why can't we go to the playground? I'm like, there's
yeah, or
like
it's
other
like,
people touch that thing. Like, you're not
yeah,
going anywhere near it.
exactly. Like
But
it's just so sketchy.
yeah, my first grader, I mean, like he's done with school usually before lunch, and he's like, "Can I go play on the Switch?" I'm like, "I guess." Like, I still got to work for 4 hours, so go knock yourself out.
Yeah, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I like Kat's comment here, sanity in this economy.
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Scott says more gear is always the answer. Vivid eye, large format is the best. Youth is wasted on the young. That's totally
It's true.
true.
I still feel pretty young. I mean, I feel like I got a good like 30 years, and then I'll probably like start slowing down.
Yeah, you
So
have plenty of time. You're still
we
a
got we
spring
got
chicken.
time. We got
Yeah.
time.
And then Les says the bigger negative, the better. So addictive.
Yeah, I'm definitely all about like that the big negatives. Like I'm kind of at this point where I'm like 35 millimeters, just like my like everyday around the house thing. And then if I'm gonna go and like shoot something, it's like the 6-7 or up.
Yeah, like, in the summer, my main camera for the most part was my Wista 4x5. Like I love shooting with that thing, and
Yeah.
like I didn't have that when I met you. I got it later on, but later that year of the film paideia, I had it for Policon in Texas. So
Nice.
it's a really cool kit because like the Wista and like everything I need to shoot with it fits in this low pro Magnum bag that also fits as carry on in the plane. So I can like pack the 4x5 and like
That's perfect.
well, I guess in the before time, it was very easy to travel with, in the whatever this is yet to be determined.
Yeah. We haven't quite, we're like in the middle times.
It's very weird. Like, yeah, I don't know how to feel about anything anymore. So have you gotten your kids into the photography bug, or have they like expressed any interest at all, or?
Yes and no. Like they're kind of funny because I've almost always shot film around them, and they'll still be like, "Can we see it?" Because I think they're used to like the phone where they can see
Exactly.
it. Um, but they both have Instax minis, and so they'll they go through phases where sometimes they're like, "Okay, I'm gonna take a picture every day," and they just take pictures of like traffic cones or whatever. I saw a cool dog.
It's kind of amazing though, the seeing the world through their eyes
Yeah.
sometimes. Like my niece, when she was 5, I gave her an old Rebel XTI. And I asked like my brother and his wife, like, do you think this might be like a little too much for her? Because like she's 5, and they're like, well, just give it to her, and like we'll see what happens. And like they were more worried about her breaking it and it being expensive. And I was like, I bought this off of my coworker who just upgraded, and I gave him $60 for it. So like if she breaks it, I'll find her another $60 DSLR. Like it's just no problem.
Yeah.
But she like took to it like gangbusters, and I hadn't seen anything that she had done yet because they didn't have a computer for her to use to dump her photos on it, and they didn't want to put them on like her mom's work laptop. So I sent them an iMac last month,
Oh, nice.
and I set it up so that she can iMessage all of the family on the iMac. And so I get these texts now of like all these pictures that she's been taking, like, since she's gotten the camera. And it's like so cool, like just seeing
That's
the world
awesome.
from like a little person's like view. And like some of them are like off kilter and janky. But one of them blew my mind. She figured out how to do selfies with the DSLR and takes these like bomb ass selfies of herself. And it's just like
Right.
this little kid. And I was FaceTiming with her the other night, and she saw my enlarger in my living room, and she's like, "What's that?" And I'm like, "Well, it's for making pictures out of out of film like this. And I like showed her a picture on the wall. I'm like, I'm thinking about moving back to British Columbia. So I'm like, when I'm back there, like, I can I can show you how to do that. We can do some printing, like you use chemicals. And she's like science? And I'm like, yeah, like science. Like, we're gonna science some pictures up, and I'll show you how to use film. And like, she's super jazzed about that. So it's cool seeing their interest. But like, some days like if she doesn't use a camera very often, like your kids and stuff. And but it's kind of cool seeing them get like all stoked about it.
I've been trying to like take them out like outside a lot more, so then I'm like, oh, do you guys want to bring your cameras? And like usually at least one of them is into it. Or like if I have some point and shoots lying around, just be like, here. I actually have two old Advantix cameras that were mine from, years ago when that was a thing. So I just need to buy some film for them, and like I'm gonna let the kids have them,
Nice.
because if they get destroyed, it's like no big deal. They were just sitting at my mom's house. But we do have like a like half bath / laundry room
Okay.
here that is kind of like an underutilized space. So I think we're gonna start using that to develop film in, and I'll probably start looping them in with that and see how they like it. Because they're always like, "Can we see it?" And I'm like, "Well, no, we gotta wait till it comes back from the lab." And then once it comes back from the lab, it's like kind of lost its excitement. But I feel like if we could do it in like a day or so, they'd be like, "Oh, that's cool."
Well, and it's kind of like that kind of questioning is the lore of that is like why instant film ended up getting created, like why pack film was created by Dr. Land, because his kid was like, why do we have to wait to see the photos? And he was like, why do we have to wait to see the photos?
We have to wait.
Yeah, and he's like, I know science shit. I'm gonna go science up some fucking instant photos in the basement and then build like one of the greatest companies that died.
Yeah, but people will not let it die. Like it's still.
It's so on the topic of it not dying. I just picked up the other day this pack of postcards from Impossible that are individual Polaroids,
Oh, nice.
and I put on my Instagram story today that if anyone wants a postcard, just DM me your address and I'll send you one of these postcards. There's 100 of them in here, so I will send all 100 of them out to whoever wants one. Um, and if people are listening to this recording or the podcast later on, email me or DM me and you can have a postcard too.
Little art to put on your wall.
Yeah, it's fun to like share this stuff. And yeah, but like Impossible, like they brought it back. Polaroid died and Florian put money and time and effort and got people passionate to bring it back, and now we have Polaroid again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's cool. I mean, like, and I like all the guys trying to like the Super Sense guys trying to do some pack film and the famous format, like, because I just like I see the Fuji packs come up and they're like $90. I'm like, man, I don't feel good about that. I don't
No,
know
it's
what I'm gonna
terrible.
get. I don't know how it's gonna go. I don't want to fight with other people over this, and I would rather support companies that are trying to do something new, because the more that you're able to support that, like the more they're going to be able to innovate and come
Exactly.
up with new things.
I'm grumpy with Brooklyn Film Camera for driving the prices of pack film astronomically. Like, it's not the kind of community we should have, but hooray for capitalism. Um, but I do like I've heard a lot of people complain about the price of one instant, and it's like, well, if you think it's too expensive, then don't buy it. But I'm
Yeah,
glad that it exists, and it's something that I will support, because when I run out of the horde of pack film that I didn't buy at like $90 or $100 a pack, when it was still kind of reasonable, when I'm out of that, here's an option for me to buy. And it's not perfect. I don't expect perfection. Like, it's cool that they took the time to make something that allows me to shoot these objects that otherwise would be extinct and obsolete.
yeah,
Like, it's a real privilege to be able to do that, and I have no problem paying a premium for that. so that they can continue to do that versus paying a premium so that, like, someone can just capitalize on this like fad that has been driven by, greed and fucking YouTubers.
Yeah, I mean, I get real cranky when like the prices of cameras go up because I just think like it does a disservice to everyone, you know. And I brought it up on Twitter a couple weeks ago, and it sort of like exploded out of hand for me. Like I was like, I gotta take a couple of days off from this because I'm just gonna get too upset and emotional. Because like I was like, listen, when a used camera like that is old and has like been around the block several times, like it's great that it still works. It should not cost hundreds and hundreds of dollars, you
Yeah.
know? And people are like, well, you know, with inflation, like when this camera came out, it was this much, and then with inflation and blah. I'm like, shut up.
And supply and
That's,
demand.
that's not the point. Like, you know, I very like I know there are some cameras, you know, like obviously like you're gonna pay more for like a Hasselblad, right?
Yeah.
Because that's just but like when you look at like the Mamiya RZ67, like that thing just like skyrocketed because someone was like, this camera is cool, right? And now the RBs are going up because people can't afford the RZ, and so then that's
Exactly.
gonna become inaccessible. And when you do that, like you cut so many people out of film photography because there's like, I can't ever afford that. And it's like, you know, like let's have cameras be affordable. And like if you're sitting on like a box of cameras that you're just kind of hoarding because you got like gas or something at some point, you're just like, I'll buy all these up, like give those things away, man, or sell them for cheap and like let some kids, you know, because the things that you're gonna end up spending money on are either camera accessories
Hmm.
like nicer lenses and all that, or on the film and the processing, you
Yeah.
know, and that's like the expensive part. So the camera shouldn't be like so prohibitive that like you can't even step into the arena.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Like, it's something that's so frustrating. Like, I look at my F5, which I love to death. I bought it almost 4 years ago now for like 200 some bucks. And now they're going for like five or 600 plus. And I'm just like, what the actual fight? And it's an electric camera. So at some
Mm-hmm.
point, it's just going to be a
It
brick.
will die.
Yeah, and it's like
Yeah.
I've made peace with that. Like I love it. It's my favorite object in the whole damn world. But I know that at one day I'm gonna try to turn it on and it'll be dead and I'll be really sad. But I'll be more sad if I paid like $1,000 for it and then
Yeah.
it died. Like, it was 200 some bucks is okay. Um, yeah, that's like where the whole capitalist structure we live in sort of sucks because it just really it drives stuff up that really shouldn't be driven up that way. Kat had a question for you though.
Yes.
You said something about large format. What what are you inspired to move toward that, or what inspired you to move toward it? And can you speak more about that?
Um, I think, and I think I kind of said this before. It's like I like when I like a larger negative. You can do more with it. I like printing photos, and like hanging them up. You can see some of mine back here.
They're beautiful.
So you know when you have a smaller negative, like you're just not going to get the mileage out of it that you are with the larger format. I think I love the look of large format, because you really have control over like depth of field and the tilt and the, you know, you're not just married to that focal plane shutter. Um, and also like I really like the idea of like you can hack large format a lot easier than you can like hack like a 35 millimeter or even a medium format camera, because you can get like the barrel lenses and, you know, you can make your own cameras, you can make your own lens boards. I also really like pinhole photography, and I'm
Right.
really into toy cameras, so like I like to be experimental, and that's probably like the biggest driving factor is
So
like there's just more room to play around.
on the toy cameras, have you played with one of these yet?
I haven't. You keep showing that, and now I'm like, I need to get one.
They are so much fun. Like they are just fantastic. Like yeah, I highly recommend it. You'll have a blast with it. And fairly robust. Like I put about 12 rolls through it.
Oh, nice.
I took it across the country on a road trip and I am not kind to it and no weirdness about it. Like it's worked pretty damn well. Super basic.
Yeah, that's one of those ones where like I look at it, I'm like, I need to get that for my kids because like if they get totally messed up, it's like who cares?
Yeah,
But if
and
they
well, there's
don't, like
nothing.
we can use them.
Yeah, and there's nothing they really have to think about it other than they just like they wind the
Yep.
thing and then push the button and that's it. Like it doesn't get more simple than that. And then what's really okay, this is like if you're shooting color film, this is so freaking cool. It has all of these different gels
Oh,
that you
nice.
can put over the flash and you can mix and
My
match them. So you
my
can
Holga here has that too.
yeah.
It's got the
Um
little.
that's
I
yeah,
found this at a
you
thrift
have
store
that.
for like $6.
Wow. That's awesome. You don't really find that so much anymore now because all of these like hipster capitalists are scouring thrift stores so they can gouge people on shit that they could have bought for cheap at the thrift store. Sorry.
This was like I found this maybe like a year or two ago, and I was like excited because I already have a Holga.
Yeah.
So I don't know if people know this, but like back in the day, Lomography used to sell like a lot of weird stuff.
Yeah, they did.
Like they sold like I used to have a TLR. I don't know what happened to it, but it was like the Seagull 166 or 66, something like that. But I got that from Lomography. They used to just sell like they'd find these pallets of dead stock cameras that were just sitting in warehouses around like Europe or China or Russia or whatever, and they would sell those. Like they didn't
Yeah.
really have their own cameras. And they also sold like a lot of expired film. At one point I bought like it must have been like 20 rolls of this Agfa's like version of Portrait, like I think it was just called Agfa Portrait or something. And I just shot the last of those like maybe last year.
Oh.
And they were weird. Like I miss that. Like I like that Lomography is like still around and continue to innovate, but like I miss when like things were weird at Lomography.
Yeah, they've been an interesting company to be part of. Like I've got an interview um, coming out with Lomography soon
Oh,
around
cool.
these cameras. So Lomo sent me three of these cameras, and I did like a giveaway where I did a photo walk with two people, and we tried the cameras out, sent the film to like sent the images to Lomo, and then they interviewed us about the experience. So that'll be coming out in the Lomo online magazine soon. But they're a cool company, and it's neat that like they're other than Kodak and well whatever that other four-lettered word that makes film. Um,
When they feel like it.
when they feel like it, when it they'll never beseech to us. They just kind of march to the beat of their own drum.
Yeah.
But it's cool that Lomo is making new stocks as well too. Like Metropolis was like a brand new formula. Like they
Yeah.
built that up, and it was just so cool. So funny thing, like Janice says here, did you get a purple single-use camera? I did not. I got a Metropolis, but it was loaded with purple because they had a fuck up at the factory where a bunch of Metropolis canisters got loaded with purple, and then they ended up out into distribution before they noticed the issue. So like thousands of rolls of Metropolis, which was
Oh
actually
no.
purple, went out in distribution, and by the time it hit distribution, there was no way for them to track it. So there was just a whole bunch of like Metropolis simple use camera,
Right.
Metropolis rolls of film that came back as purple. And when we got the film back, me and the other two people that went on the photo walk, we were um, like I've shot Metropolis before, and I really love Metropolis. And I'm like, this looks a little different. Maybe like the camera is like because it's such a cheap lens and that kind of stuff. And when the Metropolis or the Lomo rep was like, yeah, so we kind of had a boo-boo, and I guess you guys just happened to get that boo-boo. And that was the first time I've ever shot purple, and I don't love it, but I didn't hate it. But I like Metropolis a whole lot more. Um, oh, and sorry, just one quick thing.
Yes.
My niece is on here, so I'm gonna say hi,
Oh,
Coco. Thanks for
hi.
coming on there. Yeah, sorry, you were gonna say something there.
um, I bought a bunch of Lomo when they like re-released it, like the 2019 formula.
Hmm.
And I don't love it either. But I used to travel to Hawaii a lot for work because I worked for the Navy, and so we have a lot of fleet concentration in Oahu, and it
Yeah,
was great for that. Like it's great to shoot in like some sort of tropical beachy place. But other than that, I'm kind of like, eh. I
it's
think I got rid of like my last two or three. I think my last roll is here in the 6.7, and then a couple other rolls like I just sold off because I wasn't into it. I really just kind of want to shoot black and white all the time anyway.
that's fair. Oh, and
My favorite color stock is Kodak Gold 200 because that's just what I grew up with.
it's a great stock too.
It's great. There's
Like,
no like you can beat it up, you can experiment with it. It looks pretty cool when it's been expired for a few years. So, I'm just sticking
absolutely.
with that from now on.
And then Kat says here on your comment about the film prices being driven up, she said, "Preach, sister. Accessibility is so important with art forms," and I completely
It
agree.
really is. And then, like, my detractors on Twitter were like, it's not fair of you to say that this is just a rich white man's hobby. I'm like, well, it is when, you know, the
It is, yeah.
the entry ticket is like, hundreds of dollars. Cause they're like, oh, you can get like an A1 for $150. I'm like, you should be able to get it for 75. Like,
Or less.
yeah, like there's a bajillion of them around. And, you know,
Like I bought a
it's,
Nikon FG 4 years ago for like $40 with a lens, and now I'm seeing them for like 275. And it's just like in 4 years, the same camera, which was kind of junky back in the day, is like now worth as much. Like it's wild. But Nas has a question for you.
yes.
Favorite black and white film?
Tri-X. Yeah,
It's a beauty.
good standby and comes in many formats. I also really love black and white double X, which I buy from film photography
I
projects.
was just gonna ask you if you've done the double X.
Yeah, I do love the double X. I just wish that it came in something other than 35.
So I asked Cinestill about that
Hmm.
because Cinestill is at a point now where instead of buying like pre-made film, like because when they first started, they were buying like the 35
Right.
mil rolls and then removing the remjet, or buying like the one like buying the stocks so that they could fit it on that. But now they're getting to a point where they're just buying like film coffins of the stock directly from Kodak and
Oh wow.
cutting it to size for their needs. So they the Andre couldn't confirm or deny that it could be a thing, but they've already teased about doing 4x5 in some of their other formats. And since they're buying like such large
I
rolls,
might slide into Andre's DMs later and be like, hey man, like I'll buy a fridge full of that stuff if you make it
absolutely,
available.
I would love to shoot 4x5 double X. Like that stuff looks so damn good.
I
Like,
saw someone do like a thing. It wasn't with double X. It was just like with 35 millimeter film where they like, I guess they taped it onto like probably like a clear like sheet and then put it in an 8x10 camera. So like, you would have had to do that all in dark, very fiddly, but it looked
yeah,
awesome. Like so, it
I had
was
a friend
just like the sprocket holes, and you could see the whole
a friend did that with
exposure.
a bunch of 16 millimeter movie film. He did it in slats like that inside of
Oh,
a 4
that's
by 5
rad.
and then shot that in he modified a Polaroid 80B to be a 4 by 5 camera with a rangefinder. So now he has like a completely like tiny portable 4x5 with a graph lock back, with a ground glass, with a rangefinder.
I
Like,
love it.
he's a mad scientist. Like, it's taken him like a year and a half to build this camera out from scratch. But he had like the shot that he did of the 16 millimeter, he did in the 4x5, and it looks so cool because it's like you see this like chopped up image. Um, but yeah, that like to Kat's question of like the large format, like that's the thing that's so cool with like large format is like the things you could do with it are only really bounded by what your imagination can come up with.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I like that's that's the cool part about because I mean it's just it's a box. Like I know I've like brought him up before when you've done other photo chats, but Brendan Barry is a large format photographer, and he does camera obscuras where like he'll like go into buildings and like figure out and not just make the camera obscure, but figure out how to like get a sheet of paper that large and then develop it so that you have like these extra large prints of whatever is coming through the little lens that he mounted onto the window of that building. And he
That's
also is like he'll make like cameras out of like a block of cheese, and he did one with like a pumpkin.
that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, yeah. And then like he does all this like just like go follow his Instagram account because he's always just posting cool stuff
What's his
where you're like
Instagram again?
Brendan Barry Photo. I think it's BrendanBarry Photo.
Okay, I'll look him up for sure. That sounds like a lot of fun.
But yeah, like you can just do whatever. I mean, people forget it's like you can just get a shoebox and put a piece of paper in it and put a pinhole in it, and that's a camera. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, you don't need to go spend 10 grand on a Leica setup to take photos of uncreative things.
yeah,
Sorry, red dot people. I don't on you guys all the time. It's just, you know, someone said up here before, they're just trying to justify gas, and I agree with that.
and that's okay.
Yeah, it's
That's
fine.
okay.
Like, I mean, if that's what you want to do, that's what you should do. On the black and white front, have you tried Ferrania P30?
I haven't. That's like, I think when that first came out, it was sold out everywhere, and I just never got around to buying a
Freestyle,
roll.
I think, has some stock still. I
I
checked.
think they do. I was on there the other day.
And if they don't have stock of it, try Glass Key Photo in San
Okay.
Francisco. They might still have a bit of it, but it is such a beautiful film. Like, I think you'd love it if you had.
Is that an orthochromatic film?
No, it's panchromatic.
It's panchromatic? Okay, cool.
So, but what's special about it is it has like one of the highest silver contents of black and white film. So it's like super contrasty.
Yeah.
And, it's very, very like picky about like exposing it right. So it's like I've underexposed a bunch of it, and yeah, it doesn't like being underexposed. You definitely
It's a little
want.
murky.
It's a little murky, but it's kind of funny too because it's interesting that how sometimes you can shoot a roll and then hate it, and then go back and look at it like a couple months later and be like, I don't understand why I hated this so much. Like, some of this is actually pretty awesome. And
Actually, just went through my like Instagram and deleted thousands of posts.
dang,
And like, because I'm like trying to go back through all of my negatives, like archive them properly instead of just having them sit in a box haphazardly. And
yeah,
I mean, so I told you how long I've been shooting, so I have like 30 years worth of negatives that I have to go through. But there's definitely a lot where I'm going back and I'm like, oh, this one was actually like kind of good. So I think there's probably gonna be like a point in the near future where I'm just gonna like take everything down and like build it back up from scratch based
yeah,
on, but based off what I find in my archives.
absolutely. That's cool. Scott says that he thinks Franny is selling direct again too, that they worked out their issues.
Oh, nice.
And Taumeister says, I feel P30 is a bit slow for all-purpose use, but it looks great. And yeah, 80 ISO is pretty slow, but it's pretty cool too. Like for orthochromatic, the Ilford Ortho Plus is
Yeah, I
really,
love that stuff.
it's so cool. Like that's one of my favorite films too.
It's very creamy, I think
It
you
is,
could, yeah.
and it like it gives photos like a really sort of old timey look about it. I've noticed. Like,
Yeah, I bought a roll and I took it over to Balboa Park here and just kind of like went around and did a bunch of little detail shots of like, because there's a lot of like really cool little architectural details there, and I loved like every photo that came back. Like it just looks like not. I think what I liked about it was that it was not super crisp.
yeah, it there's just something beautiful about it, and like that's an interesting point too about like things being like super crisp and sharp and things like that. It's interesting to me when I hear people that get like really super like hyper focused on that almost, where it's like, oh, you need this lens because it's like the sharpest, or use this film because like it's gonna like look the best kind of thing. But I kind of like janky old lenses sometimes, and like who cares if it's scuffed up and a little scratched? Like sometimes that gives it character. Um, yeah, sometimes like when I've shot stuff where it looks too sharp and I don't like it because it's just
Yeah,
like this just does it doesn't feel right.
yeah, or it's like I have a digital camera, I could just have used that. You
Exactly.
know.
Yeah. Yeah, like on my AE1, I bought this 51.4 SSC lens for it, which is like, supposed to be this like beautiful, like amazing lens for it. And it is a gorgeous lens, but I went back to using the 51.8 that came with it when my mom got it in the 80s because it just feels better. Like,
Yeah,
oh, Nas asks thoughts about Earl Grey 100.
I have not tried it,
Yeah, I
so
haven't
I have
tried
no
it.
thoughts on it. It looks cool. It's like one of those ones I've been wanting to try, but I also like I'm one of those photographers where it's like I like what I like and I don't really deviate from that much because I want to maintain consistency in what I'm shooting, and like I know what I'm gonna get with Tri-X and I know what I'm gonna get with black and white double X, and I don't really feel the need to like go beyond that. Probably this weekend I'm gonna go pick up a couple other black and white film stocks for medium format and just do some exposure tests with the strobe and see what I like best. But that's probably as like wild and crazy as I'm gonna get with trying new stocks. Like I just even like the stuff that I have in my fridge, like I keep a very limited supply. Like I don't have a giant film fridge. Like I just buy what I like, and when I know a lot of people do. I know you do. I know you do.
I
I
feel
have
Steve.
children and they want their food in the fridge and not my film. So I keep
Yeah,
like.
the film is my children. I get
Yeah,
it. Like,
that's okay. And that's good. Sometimes I'm like, man, like this could all disappear tomorrow and you're only going to have like 10 rolls. What will you do?
I'll send you some film.
Yeah, I'll be all right. Thank you.
Well, it's funny you say that because like I went gangbusters and tried all of these different film stocks in the beginning, um, and now I don't really like doing that because it's just like I wanted to experiment. I wanted to see what the different stocks did, and now that I know which things I like and which things I can trust, that's kind of like those are the only things I really want to shoot now. Yeah, so. And I keep reminding myself, Merlin, don't buy new film because you have plenty in the fridge. You need to shoot that before you go buy more film because, like, you don't need more film.
It's like two separate hobbies. It's buying the film and then using the film.
Yeah.
And it's like fun to buy the film. It's nice to send yourself a package, especially like in these trying times. It's like a little care package to yourself. So
Absolutely.
when I was in high school, I was the editor, I was the photo editor of the yearbook.
Yeah.
And it was like 2000, 2001. So film was still predominant. Like we had a digital camera, but we didn't use it for the yearbook because they weren't up to the same quality that they are today.
Yeah.
So we had like an old library card catalog that was just filled with HP5, and I would just like take it all the time, and like that was that was my film in high school.
You just steal film from the school?
I was the editor. But then I took a photo class,
Yeah.
like a darkroom class, and our teacher was like, "You're only like you have to shoot Tri-X," because I think like he had the curriculum down to like this is how you develop Tri-X and this is how you know use it in the darkroom for enlargements. So then I kind of switched over to Tri-X. Funny story about that guy, because I remember, I don't know if you caught this comment, like few weeks ago, I think you were talking to Alexandra, and you guys were talking about Wawa.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, like in Pennsylvania, Wawa's like this, convenience store, which I actually worked at for a little while. And you were like, yeah, Bam Margera, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So my photo teacher in high school, that's the same guy that was like, this is how you shoot with Tri-X. He like grew up with Bam. They were like friends.
Oh, that's wild.
Yeah.
I used to really be a big fan of CKY, and there was a point of time in my life that I rocked a Bam chin beard.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, and yeah, it was bad. Yeah. Oh, cat's like Wawa question mark shutters. Yeah, so Kat is my best friend that I traveled across the country with
Right.
over to Vancouver, and we had a terrible experience in Wawa. It was like a veritable hellscape of sorts, um, because she has a very large dog. Like he's like a Great Dane Lab cross. He's a big boy.
That's a
Yeah,
big pup.
we need pet friendly rooms, and it was like kind of getting to be like the start of like fall winter time, so we couldn't sleep in the car. We needed hotel rooms, and the only place we could find in Wawa that would take us, because we had this large animal with us, was this like sketchy hotel where this guy that was like wispy, like the you like popsicles guy from Family Guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
We call him the Muffin Man, because when we got there, he's like, so y'all just come on in the morning, and I'll make some fresh muffins, and you just want to come in here and eat them up, like you just gotta. If you can have one, you can have two. You eat as many muffins as you want. I'm like, the Muffin Man is gonna murder us in our sleep. Like,
You're gonna be in the muffins.
exactly. Like the muffins are people. It's like sort of insane. But the, he's like, the only room I have is a smoking room. And we're like, well, how bad can a smoking room be? Well, this place is probably like 60 fucking years old. And the room probably hasn't been remodeled. Like, we know it hadn't been remodeled in that time, because the bathroom looked like it was right out of the fucking Shining. And it had that like shitty fake wood paneling walls. And yeah, 60 years of smoking is really fucking awful. Like, it was terrible.
I know how that smells because my grandmother was a lifelong smoker, and she lived in Philly all her life, and then she had to move to Florida to live with my aunt. And my brother got her TV. And so like he's like, yeah, this will be great. Like I'll put the TV in the back room and the kids will have their own TV. And like their entire house just like reeked of cigarette smoke because she just yeah. And it was like one of those old like cabinet TVs that had like the speakers built in, so it had like a lot of like it absorbed a lot.
Yeah, it
I know
has
that
a
smell.
memory. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a terrible smell. Where is it here? Oh, Caruso says, "Hi, friend. We're driving in the mountains, so I may lose you."
Hi, Kevin.
And Kat says that place is where nightmares are made real, and I agree. Yeah, that was a fucking Wawa. But I have always wanted to go to Philly so I can go hang out in a Wawa parking lot to say that I've hung out in a Wawa.
That you've been there. Yeah, I actually lived pretty close to the very first Wawa store, which is now closed because they opened one like a little bit further down the street.
That's a shame. It's
But
also
hey,
every time I've driven through Wawa, it makes me think of that shitty movie that Bam made called Haggard. And
I don't know that I've seen that one.
it's probably on streaming. I think you could rent it on YouTube if you want to see it. The acting's terrible, the storyline's terrible,
I'm
but it's
sure.
kind of like overall it's kind of hilarious. Like because it's just like this is so terrible, it's almost good. Yeah.
Maybe like one night after I've had a couple high lifes.
Yeah, exactly. It's a love
That
story.
sounds like a thing.
Yeah, it's a love story that Bam wrote. So you know
Okay,
it's
yeah,
great.
it makes perfect sense now, and I haven't even seen it.
Yeah, so good. So good. Um yeah, the chat with Alexandria was great too. Like, you know, she's a fan. Like, the whole film community has been a fantastic thing to be part of, and I don't think I would have fared as well as I have with the pandemic had it not been for the film community that we're part of. Because it's just like, you know, so many of us have been like the glue that hold each other together when we're reaching
Yeah,
out and like, you know, checking in with each other, and like um this has been like a big part of like me trying to like keep my sanity. And there's been a few times where I've just wanted to just be like pack it up and like I'm done, I give up, I can't, I don't have the
yeah,
capacity for it. But then I get comments from people or like messages from people where they're like, I appreciate that you're doing these things because it's just like this is helping me out through some like dark shit right now, and it's like it's something nice to look forward to. So I'm just like, this has become something bigger than me. So, you
it's
know,
cool though.
it is cool. And it's
But
like,
also, if it gets to be too much, like you can walk away. That's okay too.
well, it's not so much that it gets to be too much. It's just I don't really know what this is going to be. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's just been kind of interesting, like seeing where it goes. Like, you know, it started as a thing to just pass the time in the pandemic, and now I've gotten to talk to some like really amazing people, and
Yeah,
you know, it's on all over the interwebs now and different things, and it's just been like pretty cool. So I'm gonna keep up with it because it's like it's going to be a long time before we can all meet in person again, unfortunately. So this is like the closest approximation to that right now, to
yeah.
see friends and meet new friends. And
Meet new friends.
yeah, it's been a lot of fun. But Crusoe says ask her about her time in the local band scene.
Oh, like when I was in high school, I
What
was
what's that?
I was in well, I told you like, I used to shoot at all these hardcore shows, and that was like my thing for like a really long time. And then in 2010 I joined the Navy, and so that was like, a whole different thing in my life. But like I often look back to like being in a mosh pit, like changing out rolls of film, like while people are like kicking me and punching me in the face, um, as like learning how to have grace under pressure. Because if you
Absolutely.
don't, and also learning like how to function in like a very male dominated area, which like I work in one of the most male dominated areas of the Navy, and I work as a government contractor now for my day job.
Okay.
So I definitely took a lot of lessons away from that, when really I was just, shooting something that I enjoyed. But you never know where your photography is going to take you or when it's going to come in handy.
Absolutely. And it's kind of sad to think that there is going to be like a generation of kids that will never get to experience the joys of a mosh pit like you have.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was in a band for a little while too.
What kind of
I'll
band?
just send I'll just send you that picture. It was kind of like, I don't know. It's kind of like a screamo type band. It
What
was
did you do?
very
What did you do in
it
the
was,
band?
it was very experimental. I played bass and I yelled a lot.
Okay.
I wore
Well,
some Doc
that makes sense
Martens.
why we're pals because bass players are the weirdest, and
That's
I'm
true.
also a bass player. Um, I played in a punk funk ska band with bagpipes.
Nice.
Yeah, and it was terrifying because to play with the bagpipes, I had to tune the bass up to A, and that was like a fucking terrifying experience because like
Mm-hmm.
you're winding it up and you're like, I don't think it's supposed
Is
to.
it gonna go?
Yeah, and I'm like, if one of these snap, it could like kill me. Like I kept just picturing like a string snapping and like hitting me right in the jugular,
Right.
spraying blood all
That's it.
over my bandmates, and it's
And
just
then people will be like, "Is this part of the show?"
yeah, it's like that's so metal. And the thing that
And
was
you're just
so
dying. Like,
the thing that's so fucking weird, we kept getting put like we'd play at this Air Cadets Hall in the town closest to us, um, and they kept pairing us with like death metal bands. So we would be like opening for death metal bands, and it's like the four of us where it's like this like Scottish kid named Angus who played the bagpipes, this white kid with dreadlocks named Jeff that like modeled himself after Incubus quite a bit, and a little bit of Corn, um, and then this like stoner dude Sean that played drums, and then like brown kid, like Filipino kid on bass. Like
right.
we just like the first couple times we went to shows, there were like these guys are totally gonna beat the shit out of us. But it was so weird. Like they loved it, and then like this like metal would come on afterwards, and we like this isn't our scene. We're getting out of here.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I
Um,
remember shows like that.
yeah, so just like Ness says, I just want to say you guys are the best, beautiful souls, and I don't know why I'm saying this, but yeah, you are awesome.
Thanks.
Very sweet of you. Thanks. Um, how many like what kind of like what were shows like for you? What was your experience with that?
We didn't play too many shows. We kind of they wanted to do this whole thing where like we had two bass players and
What?
yeah, it was a whole thing. But yeah, we did like I want to say we did like two or three shows, and then I remember like we were supposed to have a show the night of like my senior prom or something, and so we had this whole plan that I was gonna like sneak out of the prom because it was like in Philly, um, and meet them and like go play the show and then like go home after that. And then I think the show got busted up by the cops, and like that would have been like our last show together. And we didn't really break up. We just kind of stopped practicing after that.
Yeah, how old were you when you did that one?
Like 17, 18 years old.
Yeah, it was like around the same time as our band. We did like 5 shows, but then we broke up right after we finished making a CD.
Of
Um,
course, that's what happens, right?
yeah, so like we started fighting about money before we even made a single copy of the CD. And like the guitarist was like, I've invested the most money in this like thing, and you know, um, I should get the most back. And it's like, dude, we haven't even fucking sold a single copy yet. Like, we just literally finished making this, and like we
Right.
were fighting while we were making it. So it's like at one point we got in like a huge fight, and me and the drummer were like, "Fuck this guy!" Like we used to call him a little bitch. We're like, "Fuck a little bitch!" Like we're out of here. We went for a walk and got like wicked stoned and came back. Are you so weird? And it's like nothing, man. We're fine. Like the drummer was just because he was this like white dude that was like wicked into hip hop and drove a Dodge Daytona. And that was how
That's a
we
type of person.
yeah,
That's a personality.
he was definitely a personality, and he's like nothing, man, we're fine, and like we were so giggly, and he's like there's something wrong with you guys. He's like stop being such a little bitch. He's like what did you call me? And I was like oh man, you weren't supposed to say that to his face. He's like, "Are you guys fucking stoned?" We're like, "No, we're not stoned. You're stoned." And he's like, "You guys are totally stoned." Yeah, that I haven't had much luck with bands. Yeah.
Yeah. My dad played in bar bands when I was a kid, so I was always like at a band practice as a small child. Um, but yeah, he got to a point where like he's just like I just don't play with other people now. I just don't do that anymore.
I kind of miss it, but I can see like where your dad would get to that point. Like, it's a hard grind.
It is. It is. And like, you're not going to make it big in the music industry like from when we were that age playing in bands has
Yeah.
just changed so dramatically. It's
Everything's changed so dramatically.
yeah.
Like it's even the same thing with like getting published and stuff like that. So it's like when I did the episode with Grant, there was like some people that were asking him questions about like, how do I get published? And he's like,
I have no idea.
he posts on Instagram. Like, there's really nothing about getting published so much anymore because it's not like back in the day where it's like you could become like a staff photographer for something. Like, there's literally hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people taking photos that these places could reach out to, or they're like looking through stock websites and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
And stock used to be something that was like lucrative for photographers.
Yeah.
And now it's like maybe you can buy yourself some McDonald's at the end of the month if your stock photos are like really good.
Yeah. Or it's like, how do I get someone to publish my book? It's like, dude, just publish your own book. Like,
Yeah.
if you want to do it, like, you're not going to find someone that's going to want to, like, pay out of pocket for you. Like, you're going to have to do it yourself. So it's like, just get creative. Do a pre-order on something. So.
Yeah, and that's what makes like stuff like Blurb so great because then you can just like set up your little store, and if people want it, they're gonna come find you. I think now it's like I think in the past, what people were looking for was something that would appeal to a wide audience. So if a publisher approached you, it was like, we think that your book is gonna sell this much and like this
Yeah.
many people are gonna like it. But now it's like it's so much more niche that like you really just need to find the people that like what you like,
Mm-hmm.
and then you just go to them, and you're not going to be like a huge mega superstar, but who really wants that life?
I don't want to be a huge mega superstar. Like, I just
So
want
I'm
to
yeah,
share.
like I'm totally into like just like, hey, if I put out like a zine or a little book or something and like 20 people buy it, like I'm satisfied with that.
That's awesome.
But we also have the luxury of like having day jobs where it's like photography is like more of a hobby. I'd like to kind of get to a point where it's like I am making a little bit more income from photography, but I don't know that I'll ever just be like, yep, this is what I do now.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat too. Like, it would be nice to one day get in a position where I can do more creative stuff than corporate stuff. But on the same token, like, I'm very privileged and entitled to have the role that I do right now and work for like a multinational company that I work for that extends me a lot of latitude to still be able to pursue my creative practice. So that's not lost on me at all. Like, it's been an interesting duality living in that world, but then also hanging out with a lot of creatives and stuff, and like hearing the struggles they're going through and everything. And I'm like, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
It's the worst, right? Like,
Well, it's like, here in the United States, it's like if you don't have a job, like you don't have health insurance. So it's,
yeah,
it's hard to just like walk away, because if you are going to pay for it out of pocket, it's a lot of money. And like, I have a family, I can't just be like, all right, kids, like mom's going to pursue her dreams and you're going to eat ramen for the rest of your life.
it's like, no.
Like I don't have the luxury of being able to just like step away from the corporate world right now.
Yeah, it's a tough grind for sure, finding that balance between the two things. Like, I kind of find like my creative balance is what helps me repent for my corporate sins and keeps me from like carpet bombing all of the things for like what I have
Yeah.
to do to earn my money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I also think like there is some value in like having that day job and being exposed to people that you just wouldn't hang out with if you were not doing that work, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it gives you a different perspective. So it's like, it's an interesting thing to have there. But I mean, there's always the dream too of like one day having just like a studio space where I could just like go do my own thing and my bills were so minimal that like as long as I could pay my rent and have food, you know,
Yeah.
that's it. But I feel like that's way more of a dream than a possible reality.
I mean, maybe someday, you know,
Yeah.
but you got to start socking money away for it like now.
Yeah. Yeah. So like life,
Adult things.
yeah, adult things for sure. Like life gets lifey. Being an adult is a very, very weird thing. But yeah, like you mentioned Blurb, like Blurb is a fantastic thing. So like anyone out there that's thinking of doing a book project or anything like that, if you haven't checked out Blurb, definitely check them out. Their prices are reasonable. The quality is great. Um, sort of I guess like I hate to say like a great way to make an economical project on Blurb is to use their trade books. If you do the photo books are a lot more expensive,
Mm-hmm.
but you have a lot of options with what you could do with the photo books. The trade books are significantly cheaper, but you're limited into only three categories. You can do a portrait 5x7, a portrait 6x9, or a portrait 8x10. But the photo quality that I've gotten out of the standard color, because you can do standard color, economy color on the trade books, has been fantastic. Like I've been
Yeah.
really happy with how it comes out, and you can produce a project for fairly cheap. Hey, I've actually got. I'm going to be doing a pre-order soon for a project I started in the first lockdown, where I started taking a Polaroid a day for like every
Oh,
day
cool.
in lockdown. Yeah, because it was only supposed to be 2 weeks, and then it wasn't.
Right.
And I got to day 53 before I was like, this project's gonna bankrupt me. I need to stop this. Like, yeah, so I'm gonna be releasing a book of 53 days of Polaroids during lockdown in the
Oh,
next.
that'd be cool. I
Yeah,
like that. I'm excited to see it.
yeah, it'll.
I haven't done a trade book with them yet. I did a photo book that I like gave to family for like Christmas gifts this year, just like pictures of the kids, and I really liked it, and you know it was easy to do, and
Mhm.
so
Yeah, the book
Blurb
rights.
does not
Right?
sponsor this photo chat, guys, but
Exactly. This
here
is
we are.
PhotoChat is not sponsored, and we're not controlled or manipulated or managed by any third-party entities. But definitely, like if you haven't played with a trade book, check it out because you
Yeah.
can do some cool projects for pretty cheap. Um, and yeah, like the photo books I found are usually about double what a trade book would cost.
Which
So
is like great if you have a body of work that you like really want to share with people, but you know, I
yeah,
think that also goes. And so here's like another thing, because we were talking about like accessibility and pricing earlier, and it's like, you know, I think like the great thing about zines is like you can keep them super cheap, you know, and then like everyone who wants one can get it. But the other thing that I like with Blurb is like if you do a book, like you can offer, if you sell it through them, like you can offer different styles of it. So it's like you could do a hardcover version,
yeah,
or you could do a soft cover, or you could, you know, and change up the paper. And so then you can offer it at like different price points. And then if someone wants it, they'll be able to get it, which I think is really cool.
it's very cool. And like on the accessibility front too, Blurb also has their own software suite. So
Yeah.
if you don't have like Adobe InDesign or anything like that, like you can just download their BookWrite software and use that to make the book. So um, I found it's like really cool because they are a pretty inclusive way yeah, and the print on demand is pretty cool too. So it's like um, when I've done the blurb books, I just do like sort of a print run of them and just say like, this is like X edition, and then
Right.
that's kind of it, because I sign them and then mail them to people, and I put like little extra surprises in there and stuff. I would I'd like it to be more personal than
Yeah.
just like a robot shipped it to them from an HQ, and but that's just like a weird me thing. But it is cool that like you can, like, if you don't want to do that kind of thing and you just want to do print on demand, you can just have the web store on there, and people can, I think it's even searchable through Amazon Books and stuff too,
Yeah.
which is cool. And then you get an ISBN number, which makes you feel like, I'm kind of
So
a big
important.
deal. I'm published over here. This book has got an ISBN number. It's a real book.
Very legitimate.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, and then when your mother asks, like, well, what are you doing? You're like, I'm a published author, Mom. Okay, see?
Yeah. I am an artiste, Mother.
Yes. Put your beret on.
Well, this has been a lot of fun. I appreciate you spending some time with
Thank
me.
you for having me.
Absolutely. It was great to have you on here. And it's nice to see it, because it's been like, 2 years since.
2 years, man.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I enjoyed the chat with Phil last week, and the potential of maybe some online paideia type stuff. So I hope that comes to fruition.
Yeah, I hope so too. And also, like, on the online front of like different things, Policon Bay Area is going to be coming up soon here. It's going to be a virtual event. And what is the date? Oh shit. It's weird, because like some people message me on Instagram and some people message me on text, so I can't remember
Yeah, you got the whole setup there.
where the threads are sometimes. But I was talking to Brian Brooks, who runs the Policon Bay Area stuff, and Policon Bay Area is going to be a virtual event, and it's going to be running March 12th to March 14th.
That's soon.
Yeah, it's coming up.
Month.
And like we did the Policon 5, which worked out, where it was Policon V and then virtual in brackets on the end of it, which
Nice.
was kind of cool. And that worked out pretty well. Like, it was all on Zoom and things like that. So if you're feeling the need to connect with people, that's coming up next month. And stay tuned for that. You'll probably see some stuff on my Instagram. I'll reshare things as they post it. And they've invited me to be a guest speaker to talk about like my Policon experience and like what that community has meant to me. So that was
oh, that'll be rad. I look forward to that.
I was kind of like flabbergasted that they invited me to do that, because I'm like, I'm nothing special, man, but it's cool. I'm looking forward to just like
It's cool to be recognized.
It's just nice to be part of the community.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
It is the whole like photographic community has just really changed my life. So it's been cool. Yeah.
All right, my friends.
I'm gonna have some dinner now, but
it's late for you. You go.
Yeah, it's 9:45 right now.
Yeah, go eat.
So
it's like dinner time here, so I'm gonna go do that too.
Well, I hope you have a great dinner, and I'll see you on the Instagrams.
All right.
Thanks for hanging out with me.
Thanks to everyone that came by.
And thanks for everyone that came by. Next week, I'm gonna have a girl with too many cameras joining me. Yeah, I'm excited to have her on, and we'll definitely talk about the work that she's been doing with the Women with Film Wednesdays and Film Sorority and her own work. So I'm really looking forward to that episode. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun to have her on.
Yeah, that'll be awesome. All right. I'll talk to you soon.
Definitely. And wash your hands. Wear a mask over your nose and all that.
Wear a mask.
Exactly. All right. Take care, guys.
All right. Good night.
Cheers.